From the engineering side. From this gentleman over here.
I want to thank all you guys for being here. I suspect we're going to have some undergraduates coming in late tonight because I'm getting about 300 calls this afternoon from my undergraduate students who are all saying, hey, there's a career fair there today at the same time as Dr. Mao's speech. Which should I go to? And I said, well, if you're a good entrepreneur and a good business person, you'll go to both. And you'll figure it out. And they said, can we come in late? And I said, yes, I can. So I've already warned Dr. Mao people may be coming in late, etc. If you're not an undergraduate, you maybe don't understand, but they're all panicked this year. Because in prior years, jobs have been easy, and everybody all thought it was so nice and easy, but they're thinking this year it's going to be tough. So they're all down there. In fact, we were just down at the University Hall, and there's a ton of them down there we kept running into. What on earth was that? Anyway, for me, tonight is a very distinct pleasure. I've worked with Dr. William Mao for a number of years. He's always been willing to help out with my kids. He's spoken to my kids at this university probably 4 or 5 times over the past 10 years. Whenever I asked him, he always said yes. Even one time I asked him if he'd go to Singapore with me to speak at a world conference we were putting on in Singapore. And he actually did. I was absolutely pleased with that. He is, to me, one of the finest men I know. And you'll see that today. He's just one of these wonderful, wonderful, decent people. He's been a really interesting entrepreneur. We were talking a little while ago. He's been 32 years owning his own companies. And I said, are you starting a new business now? What are you doing? And he said, yes, I'm working very, very hard at being an executive in golf. So he's a very busy man playing golf right now. I bet him he'd be back into something because it's pretty hard to keep an entrepreneur down. And he doesn't believe me yet, but I told him he'd probably buy a golf company someday if he got mad enough at a golf ball or at a club or something like that. Dr. Mao was one of the early pioneers in the computer industry. He has a PhD from, I mispronounce it all the time, so I'll say RIP. You can pronounce Rensis, how do you say it?
Yeah.
RPI is good enough, good. Which is a major, major school, a wonderful school. He still, as I understand it, holds some patents that are being used in the computer industry and products that he invented and ideas he came up with. He then started Bugle Boy Clothes. And a long time ago, he said to my students he wanted to get as far away from the computer industry as he could. Well, getting into the clothing business is really far away from the computer industry. At one time, his business was selling, had sales of over $1 billion, which I think you'll agree is a pretty nice big business for one man to be running. Very, very successful. He's going to tell you about his great adventures in the entrepreneurial world tonight. Dr. William Mao. By the way, where's Mrs. Mao? Where's my wife?
There.
Way up there? Rosa Mao is way up and back there. You're like my student sitting in the back row.
I'll turn on the microphone. It seems to be working pretty well. Professor Kiesner, Dean, I'm very pleased to be here. And Fred is always very generous with his remarks with me. Whether I succeed or fail, he's always there. So, you know, speaking to students actually is one of my favorites. Being in school, when I came to the States, I was 12-year-old. And it has now been 53 years. And so most of my education is in the United States. And so speaking to students, nowadays I participate in several universities. One is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Second is Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn, where I get my master's degree. And third Purdue University. That's where I got my PhD. Okay. And ever since I was in college, I had an affinity with digital computers. In 1958, digital computers were card readers. You probably don't even know what a card reader is. IBM cards. Yoo-hoo, IBM cards? No. And it's really exciting. The courses at Rensselaer at that time was switching theory. What is switching theory? Switching theory is binary numbers. So, what is a binary number? Bunch of 0 and 1s. 1010 is 10. Why is that important? It's important because that's how digital computers are designed. Circuits are either 0 or 1s. 1 for yes, 0 for no. Now, how simple can it be? Okay? In those days, when you design a computer, the computers are designed one physical device at a time because there were tubes. If you have a very good hi-fi system, it's tubes. If you have a Macintosh amplifier, it's not transistors, it's tubes, because you get the highest fidelity when you have a tube design even today. The highest end of high fidelity system come from tube. Okay. So how did I get mixed up? Well, somehow I'm a binary-oriented person. Some people are analog-oriented. I am, right from the beginning, a binary-oriented person. Right? So I went from Rensselaer to Poly Institute of Brooklyn as a teaching assistant. I got my master's degree, and actually, my master's dissertation has to do with asymmetry of Boolean functions. After 2 years there, I got really very sad because I felt I was only one lecture ahead of my students. You know, I had to read my papers to give a lecture the next day. I did very well, but I felt I was walking on thin air. So I went out and got a job to design computers. I'm going to say something that's really going to make me feel old. 1963, I was designing the third generation of computers. What is the third generation of computers? The first generation is tubes. Second generation is transistors. Third generation is integrated circuits. Integrated circuits is when you have about 10, 15 transistors in a flip-flop design. When you force the voltage here, you switches the devices. We were able to get a room about 25% of this size in the tube technology. That's where your central processor unit is, with a millionth of the capacity of what you're using on your laptop today. That was the size. I was able to reduce that to about an eighth of that size using integrated circuits. Technically, it was always there. We were talking about multitasking in those days. I was designing memory bus controllers that you can go to 8 memory banks so that you can speed up the process of getting the instructions and operands at the same time in different memory modules. And that was something incredible in those days because we were able to bring Honeywell, that's who I worked for at that time, into profitability. by making a little business machine that was transistor, the integrated circuit design. All of a sudden, the condensation, the central processor unit at that time was about the size of this unit, cabinet here. We thought we did a miraculous job. We shipped 80 of these a month. And we couldn't manage the logistics of getting the trucks to ship the computers. Today, 20 million transistors on a little chip smaller than my fingernail. Okay? I got tired of computer design, 1965. Can you imagine somebody can be tired of computer design, 1965? Sick. I went to Purdue University. There's a story about going to Purdue University. And I applied to 3 schools, Stanford, Harvard, and Purdue. I got accepted to Harvard, all 3. I figured if I stay in Harvard, I'll never get my degree. Life is too good. I didn't have enough money to go across the country to go to Stanford. Purdue was a compromise. That's as far as I can get to with my vacation money. That's how I ended up in Purdue. I never regretted it. Excellent school, especially with what I wanted to study at that time, artificial intelligence, 1965. I got my degree in 2 years, less than 2 years. I hope I can still pronounce it. My dissertation was analysis and synthesis of multi-threshold special logic. I'm not stuttering. Multi-threshold special logic. It ties into pattern recognition. And I was able to prove, in order to have artificial intelligence, you have to have pattern recognition as the first stage. You have to recognize before you can make decisions. Okay? And I was able to prove, and with anything you can describe as a Boolean function, and some of the Boolean functions are very complicated versus simple, linearly separated functions. I was able to prove that no matter how complicated the function is, you can define it by a series of planes. But if you can define a series of planes to look at something, you can build a machine to do that job. Don't ask me to prove that again, because I can't remember a thing. It's been a long time. 1967, I got my PhD. That was a good year. Like Frank Sinatra says, that was a good year. 9 interviews, 9 jobs. One higher than the other. It was in the height of the Vietnam War. Pattern recognition experts and artificial intelligence experts, we can name our price. There was only a handful of us. And primarily due to a professor in Purdue University, Professor K.S. Fu. He was an incredible genius. I worked for him. In 2 years, I finished all my coursework, qualifying exam, published 5 papers. He says, Bill, it's time for you to go. So he packed me up. I'm off to California. I worked for Litton Industries. Okay? Litton was in Woodland Hills, 1967. And my job was a staff engineer, responsible. The second task I took on was what they call the block-oriented computer. The vision of the electronics getting so small that air-to-surface missile computers, now it's no longer secret, okay? At one time it was top secret. The air-to-surface missile computers was getting so small and so cheap that you don't have to keep repair equipment all around the world. Computer don't work, take it out, put another one in. It's going to be as simple as that. As I dive into the work, it was incredible. The technology was so advanced. There was no equipment in the industry. to even help you analyze, is the chip working? How do you test it? You go from a 15 transistor chip to a 3,000 transistor or 5,000 transistor chip in those days. Okay. It was so frustrating that we designed the chip, we manufactured the chip. When we tested it and the technique we test, we didn't know whether that was the response from the chip or we just picked up the signal from the wire that's next to it. That was how rudimentary it was at that time. And being entrepreneurial by nature, I wrote up a prospectus. I went out to the market, and I made 5 presentations. I got 4 offers to do what I wanted to do. That was 1969. We were deciding whether the company's name should be Intelligent Data Terminals. This is 1969, okay? Or macrodata. I feel that the future belongs to interconnection computers rather than large computers. I told Data Mage magazine there will be a $5 chip someday. That's going to be able to compute. I got on to the front cover of the electronics magazine for being the future shock. And in reality, I said, in order to get there, we have to have the right equipment. You can make a chip, but if you have to build a system around the chip to make sure that it works, the cost will be so high. And the real question is, who's checking the checker? You build the equipment, there's errors on the equipment. How do you know the equipment's working or your chip is working? I met a man whose name is Julius Lefkowitz. He was the money manager for William Morris Agency. He says, you are so full of piss and vinegar. You gotta be honest. I'm gonna bet on you based on what you're telling me. He put up $2 million, 1969. So he asked me, how much money do I have? I said, what? I have to put in money? It's not good enough. I'm here. I'm going to make money for you. You know, when you don't have money, the checkbook is always in the pocket. I took out the checkbook and said, $380.73. That's what I got. He said, I'll take $380. I said, you are a tough guy. He said, don't worry about it. I think your credit's going to be good now. That's how I started the electronics company called Macrodata. And we invented the art of testing chips. A chip is a system. It's no longer a circuit. Now it's functional. Does it work? 2 plus 2, does it equal 3, 4? Or does it perform to the speed that you intended to design for? Okay? We were instant success, incredible success. It was like the mouth that water, a real freshness all over the world. Out of the top 50 electronics companies in the world, I sold 48. The other 2 didn't know which way is up, or they're mechanical people. It was very exciting. You can imagine, at that time, I was like 33, 34, and probably looked like 21. And I'm talking to presidents of NEC, who is 65 years old. They're not going to listen to me. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like incredible experience for me of learning how other countries, I mean, I am as American as you can get. And when I go overseas, I'm look Asian, I'm you know, Chinese descent. But in reality, I speak American, I think American, and they relate to me because I am Asian. That's my advantage. I didn't go there with the blonde hair and blue eyes, you know. It's a mystery to them. But I went there as an Asian, but speaking with an American thought, which is a very unique experience for me. And as a result, we penetrated virtually every large Japanese company in Japan. That would be NEC, Fujitsu, Toshiba, Yamaha, Matsushita, Sharp, at that time was called Horikawa, Fuji Denki Karaku, I mean, you name it, we had them. In Europe, we had everybody also. What made us famous? We proved to the industry that semiconductor memories today is very cheap, but to get there, it's like, it didn't work. It's pattern sensitive. It depends on what addresses that you send into the memory chip, the access time varies. Nobody believed me. I took my little machine, I went up to Intel. I met the founder, who was at that time Bob Noyce, and I plugged his memory in. The first one is 2501. It's a 250-bit memory. And I blew his eyes, mine away. I mean, his eyes was out to here, you know. I made his memory chip go crazy by just programming certain address functions, you know, going from all zero to all ones, and just, we call them galloping ones and zeros, and we have one pattern that we call gal rec. We'll wreck any memory that comes in its way. But we had a great time. And as a result, Intel was one of my best customers. National Semiconductor was actually one of the first customers in random logic. How do you test something that really works as a logical function? Okay. It was exciting. It was beyond exciting to have participated in that. Okay. In 1972, we went public. And my cost for my shares was a penny a share. When we went public, my shares split 3-to-1, and it came out in the market at $15. That was my first million. I worked 15, 18 hours a day. In those days, 7 days a week. That's really 24/7. I think people now talk about 24/7, they don't really know what that means. I can tell you, we worked overnight when the customer comes for inspection on their first system. It was incredible. But we were also juiced up. It was like just incredible, and we were in demand. We were 4.76 million a year, but we were in demand. People come from all over the world to watch our machine. How does it work? How come? I was in Düsseldorf, Germany, and I met one of, that's where U.S. Commerce Department occasionally brings American machines and trades to other countries there. We give an exhibition also. I had a little booth there. And there was a person called Richard Bladowski. He came to our booth and asked me what the machine does. And I told him what it does. And he said, no, it's not possible. This is not possible. This man later became my manager in Europe and became my European manager in Europe, okay? And he took me everywhere. We did not lose one order. In fact, one of my first lectures to Philips, located in Nijmegen, Holland. Philips is one of the largest electronic firms in the world. After the lecture, I gave an evolution of the test systems and the electronics technology. He said, Dr. Mao, I have never heard something this beautiful. I can cry. I mean, today, this man is still one of my best friends. Every year when we go to Europe, we're still, in fact, he's in Florida right now. We still get together, and it's wonderful to be able to keep friends through your career. As the company grows, you need money. And I sold more stock at that time to an electromechanical company. And by 1975, that company already had majority share. And business course 101 started to happen for Dr. Mao. And really, by then, it was, I'm a technologist. For you guys, the students, you're much too young to remember 1974 and 75. It was a recession much, much worse than what our experience here is today. And in reality, they were, in my opinion, short-sighted. They framed me for hiding losses when they should have reported the total, because they already infiltrated the company with their own accounting people, EVP. And I was actually taken out of action in one of the board meetings. I didn't know anything about it until I was in the board meeting. And my lawyer was able to negotiate a 3-year contract with descending salaries. And thank God there was another minority shareholder that believed I was innocent, because I'm too stupid to cheat. I'm a technologist. What do I know about books? And the interesting thing was that they also sued me because I was the chairman and CEO. And through the deposition, they found I was not the culprit, but the victim. I became the key witness. Okay. Over the next 10 years, lawsuit continues. Eventually, that company lost $32 million. $12 million are compensatory. Okay. $20 million are punitive and interest. In the meantime, they sent me to the left field. Here I am, the guru of the industry. I spent all this time telling you I'm the guru of the industry, right? How do I go get a job? Nobody needs a boss. I can't go somewhere and say, I want to be your boss, hire me, you know? I mean, think about it. I mean, you know, once you have achieved, how do you go get another job? You don't go get another job. And for me, I was able to make decisions and really understand if I were to go back to the electronics industry, there would be too much explanation to do. It's not possible. Okay. And in the trial at that time, I was lucky. The company that did this to Macrodata, my company, generated so much noise in the market, they were eventually bought out by another company, Eaton Industries. When Eaton bought this company, I don't want to mention the name, okay? They virtually got rid of all the bad guys that was in there. So secretaries are always there. The bosses can go, but the secretaries are there. So they went to the company and they searched for documents and said, do you have any documents that was related to Macrodata? One sweetheart secretary says, yeah, I do remember. In the attic there, you know, there's several boxes. Those boxes were later revealed that they really committed premeditated motives to get rid of me so that they can buy the company at a dirt cheap price. That's how they won the case. Okay. In the meantime, I can't wait. I got to do something. 1976, play a lot of golf. Won the Class A championship. Eliminated the guy on the last round. 6 down, 5 to go, 5 to go. I still got that trophy in my bag. So, in the club, there are a lot of Gamanto people. Gamanto means common people. And they're always telling me, gee, we need an importer. What's an importer? I don't know. What's an importer? Okay. At the same time, I went back to see my original investor who became like a father to me. And while we were talking, a telephone call came and says, my son-in-law wants to have his own garment company. Do you know any agent in Taiwan that he can deal with? After he hung up the phone, I said, Julie, I'm his agent. What do you know about garment business? Nothing. But I'm honest, I work hard. I'll do anything. So he introduced me to his son-in-law. He was my first customer. In those days, I didn't know a knit shirt from a woven shirt. I look more like a geek because I'm an engineer. You know? So, in any case, he was my first customer. We went to Taiwan. It was like incredible, and but I knew it was not going to be a safe business because the agent is somebody that's in the middle. If a customer wants something, you take his designs, his dimension, and you get a source at a price. All right, then they should open a letter of credit to you. Very often, if they can't sell it, they say the order's canceled. And you're left with the order. Very few people have the money to open a letter of credit at the time that they place the order. But from the club, they introduced me to other manufacturers I started to import for. And really, it's incredible. You have to imagine, I deal with billion-dollar companies. Siemens in Wallstraße, Munich, Philips, Nijmegen, NEC in Kawasaki, Tokyo. I mean, these guys are billions, right? Here I'm talking to a buyer who's going to give me 12 pieces of pants at $8 each. Before, my equipment was $285,000 each. Can you imagine that transition? However, I was introduced to a company called A Smile. It's a denim jeans company. The man says, listen, one of my customers is going overseas for the first time. Do I want to go to Taiwan and see what I can do? I entertain them. And I said, sure, I'll go. I went to Taiwan, set up a little office, which is impossible. To get a telephone in those days takes 3 months. Okay? But we got telephones on the desk, but it's not hooked up. But it looked good. They came in 3 days, I booked $960,000. What an easy business. Oh my God. I really booked $960,000. Several reasons. One, it's their first trip overseas. They never saw value the way they saw it. I didn't even know what I was doing. All right? And when I came back, this guy named Bucky, I won't give you the full name, he said, how'd you do? $960,000. He said, that's nothing. I know 2,000 customers like that. Being a mathematician, 2,000 customers times a million, 2 billion? Can it be really that easy? This guy and I got into business within 4 weeks. If the picking is so good, that's when we started Bugle Boy. That's how Bugle Boy started. They were a wholesale manufacturer, okay? And that's how Bugle Boy started. We picked Bugle Boy name because they were in the apparel business and they want something very young. For me, I had no clue. That's not, I really didn't understand young men or whatever. And in reality, in the beginning, people didn't like the name. But today, year 2000, in the men's business, it was in the top 10. We were number 10. People ahead of us are people like Lee's, Wranglers, and Levi's, and some of the underwear companies, Fruit of the Loom, Jockey, they ranked very high. But we were way ahead of Polo, Nautica, Hilfiger, you name it, because we carry value for Middle America. This past December, among all the brands, including women's pants, they had a survey. Bugle Boy came in number 20. Number 1 brand was Timex. Again, underwear companies were up there. Okay, Nike, of course, is up there. And the interesting thing is that Bugle Boy had gone through incredible scenario. In the beginning, I'll start from the beginning. When we started Bugle Boy, I had some terrible recommendations by experts. The company started in May 1977. By June, we had a sample line that you sell from. And by July, we were shipping, or supposedly shipping goods. The only problem is, as later I found out, fall season normally is sold in January, not in May and June. And in the fashion business, old fashioned by a month sells like old sushi. So in my very first season, $300,000 went out of my pocket. Then the reality started to strike. Okay? Sample lines went to the salespeople. Salespeople, after 2 weeks, came back. There's no open to buy. Now, you don't understand that term. That means stores has already spent all their money. What do you mean no open to buy? What are you talking about? All right? That was the first lesson. Timing. When you introduce a line, when you're supposed to sell it. I mean, it was like incredible. How do I start a company in May, come up with a line, buy the product for fall, to be shipped in June, July, August, and there's no money to buy now? Who should know that? Huh? I don't know that. Okay? And then they had to discount everything to sell. That's how you sell garment if you're behind. If the budget is already done, there's always people buying if you want to give them a big discount. Okay? Thirdly, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. They only have to pay when they need you. They don't have to pay if they don't need you. Fourth, if they really don't like you, they can return all the goods. What? To me? You're returning the pants to me? What is this? That's a tough business. For the next 3 years, I learned the total language of our garments. Returns, chargebacks. They can take deductions. You can sue them, but nobody else is going to work for you with you anymore. Chargebacks. Okay, you ship 288 pieces. They tell you you only ship 272. If you don't like it, too bad. Do you want another order? Then it's 272 pieces. You get smart real fast. Okay. I'm thinking, in the electronics business, I know I can sell it. I can create a machine right in front of the customer. Because I know my ability, if they can tell me their needs, my systems are flexible enough, I can orient something and satisfy their need. In fact, I did do that in Siemens semiconductor division. Start to think, what is it about the garment business? I can make a pair of pants. You can make a pair of pants. He can make a pair of pants. What is it going to be that I'm going to sell mine better than them? The foundation of everything is really value. That's the start. Okay? But that's not always holds. It's a element that is a competitive advantage to us. Okay? That competitive advantage is only valuable depending on the time sequence. Secondly, if you don't have a brand, in the early 80s, we did not have a brand. We were very small. 1980, we were $3.5 million. 1990, we were 500 million. That's an incredible growth. But 80 to 84, it was a tremendous lesson. From the point of view of what do we really need? We need a brand. Some of you might remember that most of the bus shelters in Los Angeles had Bugle Boy images. At that time, even though when they saw the Bugle Boy images on the bus shelter, they didn't know what Bugle Boy was. Okay? Then Michael Jackson came in with Billie Jean, 1983. Is that too old for you guys to remember? Billie Jean? Huh? The MTV? I guess Michael Jackson is no longer popular. At that time, it was incredible. So, there was a pair of pants made up of nylon twill fabric, like the umbrella, that was selling in merry-go-round at $58 a pair. We took that pant and had it made. The cost was $6.25 in Taiwan, okay? And we made, I sold it for 12. Incredible margin. Merry-go-round put it in their store, sold it for $28. They had $58 pant that's selling well. We took it down and found that we can make it for $6.25. We took a very high margin, $12, and merry-go-round, it's double plus 3, so it's $27. Okay. We shipped them 8,000 dozen, 96,000 pieces. In 1984, it was explosive. By June 1984, we were shipping them 8,000 to 9,000 dozen every 3 weeks. Do you know how many pieces that is? It's incredible. We made an industry in Taiwan. In that pen, there were 9 zippers per pen, times 12 pieces per dozen. It's 108 zippers, okay? And if you were importing 50,000 dozen a month, compute that, 500,000 pieces a month out of nowhere. So we made a lot of people rich that year, because when you import, you have to have quota. We drove the quota price way up, and we can still afford to import the price of that pen, okay? You know what happens to instant success? What goes up must come down. By September 1984 Olympics, I still remember. That weekend, not one pen sold. In those days, all of the stores in the mall had a similar pen. Of course, we were the dominant figure. Not one pen sold. It's almost like 4 p.m. Saturday, you know? The sales stopped. In that quarter, I took a $12 million swing. That pen finally was sold to Los Angeles Street at 25 cents each. But, you know, nobody knows. And the day before it stopped, we were still getting orders like, you know, how many dozen they want. It was like incredible. But we kept our focus. We got on to the next hot thing. And the next hot thing at that time was cargos, cargo pants, cargo shirts, vests. We were the dominant party in producing cargo pants. And that's way before Abercrombie and Fitch cargos. Okay? They're like 10 years after what we had done. And we really excelled over the next 5 years, from 1986 to year 2000. We went from $80 million to $500 million. We made a lot of money. We wasted a lot of money. And by 1990, I was very scared. I said, the parachute pen lasted 9 months. I am already on my 5th year with this cargo phenomenon. Okay. Beginning of the 90s was a soft landing economy. Those of us old enough will remember. Okay. And the society was really changing. What was fashion in the 80s no longer holds in the 90s. Parents have to watch their budget a lot more. Jobs are hard to get. And a lot of things happened. The structure of retail completely changed. At one time, there's mass merchants and department stores. Who's this Walmart? Where they come from? Today, they're the largest corporation in the world. They just beat out ExxonMobil at $230 billion a year. That kind of phenomenon started to happen. retail started to be chopped in pieces. Retail, department store, mass merchant, Sears, and discount stores. So in reality, we had to hold our volume, change our direction, going from department store to the mid-tier. That was difficult. Styles are changing. That's easy. Design, we know how to design. Okay. To find another item that will sustain $500 million a year, it's not going to happen. All of a sudden, my merchants were frustrated. Norman would come out with 4 lines a year. There were years in the early 90s we came out with 8 lines a year. Spent a lot of money to see whatever will stick in the store will sell, which will send us to another direction. My direction to the company was we want to be a brand, and we are a brand at that time. Some of you might remember, excuse me, are those Bugle Boy jeans you're wearing? Virtually everybody knows that line. And even today, a lot of people are still knocking that off. What we want it to be is a staple product for Middle America. Because you cannot create a consistent hype all the time. To create a staple brand, you need to create a powerful infrastructure. Bugle Boy has one of the most powerful infrastructures for production. We actually have fabrics going from China to Bangladesh, make the pants, come back to another part of China to do the wrinkle-free process, sell it to the store at $13. So they can sell wrinkle-free pants at $21.99 in the store and make money. And that you can get, not in one location, but that theory is really coming out of my computer background. Because the infrastructure, the interconnections is like designing logic. Okay. And we accomplished that very successfully. By 1998, we were $540 million. We never let the company go down below $440 million or so in the early 90s. Normally, when you have hype, you're out of business. But we were able to change what Bugle Boy means to the American consumer. And that was quite an achievement because that was a tremendous amount of software development. We were stock replenishment plan to some of our best customers. As they sell by sizes, on a weekly basis, we get reorders to refill the sizes, which is incredible. So what were some of the mistakes? Success is a big mistake. Success is really a big mistake because it goes to people's head. And success generates automatically people think bigger success, which is a real mistake. Changing from wholesaling to more retail is not a big mistake, but the execution was a big mistake. Because even though thinking is right, even though theory is right, if the execution was not done, you're out of business. CFO is a big mistake. Independent auditors can be a big mistake. They want to get paid, they're willing to sign off anything they want. Big mistake. And actually for Bugle Boy, 1998, and the proceedings after that of getting a bigger, in 1997, 98 time period. Perfect. We just had a great year. We want to open more stores. Therefore, we have projecting so many units. In order to be efficient, we want to open up Atlanta, Atlanta, bigger warehouse, totally automated. Okay. Stores, we're planning on 80 stores a year to be open. Performance looks phenomenal. By the time I saw the results, we were achieving like 50% of the performance. Expenses were going, spent a lot of money on the new warehouse that was never really worked perfectly. And between these two and the retail itself having issues, 98 and on, Levi's just had a newspaper this morning. For 5 years in a row, their volume has come down. It's incredible. Okay. So, year 2000 was not happy times. I was committed to my business. I can see that the business can turn around. From 1997 to year 2000 June, I personally put in another $21 million to Bugle Boys business. I don't regret it. I really made all the effort I can possibly do to change the direction of the company and to be in better control. However, the powers to be, that you have to depend on the bank, they're changing directions. They don't want to be in the mid-tier. And as a result, both my wife and I had to resign from the company. And after that, the bank took Bugle Boy into chapter. The brand was sold eventually at $42 or $45 million. As a continuity of Bugle Boy, believe it or not, the brand is probably going to be bigger than ever. They sold Bugle Boy jeans to Walmart, to all 3,000 stores around the world. So the brand survived me, which is what I want. You know, I did not name the brand Bill Mao. Okay, my name is not Giorgio Armani, you know, but I built a brand, and the brand is going to survive me. For me, I'm retired. I spent a lot of time, I loved it, I have nothing to regret, and I'm working on to reduce my strokes by 5 strokes this year. Thank you.
Class coming up, so I'm going to ask Dr. Mao to stay here if several of you want to talk to him for a minute. I want to make a couple of comments. Don't feel too sad for him.
I don't feel sad for myself.
He picked my wife and I up tonight in an S55 Mercedes, which I guess is a real, well, I thought it was a hell of a car. I said, how many cars do you have now? He used to have 12 or 13 collector cars. I used to collect cars myself. He says, oh, it's terrible. He said, I'm down to 6 now. I said, oh, really? Yeah, Bentley Coupes and Ferraris and things like that. So he's not doing too badly. But the point I want to make for you is I want some of you guys someday to be up here telling us about your adventures on the roller coaster of entrepreneurship. And it'll be fun for you. And you'll have a hell of a time. And then you can go play golf when you're through. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bill, your mic's on still.
Oh.
The Anderson accountants are recording this.
That was fantastic.
Isn't he a neat guy?
That was fantastic.